allow us. Okay. So thank you so much. My name is Heather Kincaid, and I am the library director, just right next door. And thank you to the Finance Committee for inviting the library to come over and go over our budget for 2025. The library board has asked me to give a little overview of the library, some of the challenges that we faced, some of the meaningful connections that we've had, to give you some statistics from 2017, to look at some of our peer communities, and just to go over what we are looking at for the 2025 budget. So I know time is of the essence, so I will get going. So in this presentation, I just used two documents. I used the Wisconsin Public Library Standards 6th edition, which is written by the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction, the library side, and then also the 2023 annual reports. Okay, moving on, just wanted to briefly highlight our mission, values, our vision and values. So Waterford Public Library's mission is to provide all patrons with impartial and inclusive access to a wide range of information resources, programs, and services in order to encourage literacy and lifelong learning, as well as as well as to support educational, cultural, and recreational activities. And our vision is to be a center for information and discovery through innovative programming, robust collections, and responsive services. And then we have a number of values. I won't touch upon all of them, but just to highlight a few, we strive to be a warm and welcoming place for community members to gather, employing collaborative, creative, and positive staff focused on patrons' interests and needs. And we also strive to be responsible stewards of the library's financial and material resources. Okay. Challenges faced. So I have the date March 17th of 2020. I'm sure you can all guess what that date references. So on Tuesday, March 17th of 2020, our library closed to the public, and then we reopened on Monday, June 7th of 2020. So our library has faced challenges in the past, namely a lengthy construction project, navigating COVID-19 and its aftermath, a municipal funding shortfall, a reduced staff, and decreased hours. However, not to always focus on the challenges, but to look at them as opportunities, we also have numerous patron success stories. And for a number of months, I have come before the village board monthly talking about meaningful connections. So for example, I had highlighted the woman who needed to speak with her, had a virtual appointment with her oncologist. She needed to do it via Zoom and just struggled, ended up coming to the library. We worked with her to go through the technology, and then she eventually came into the library to do her appointment. Now she comes every time when she has to do a virtual appointment, and we're happy to help her. And also, just to highlight a gentleman who came in and wanted to build a resume. We helped him with the resume, gave him resources to help him build his resume. He was able to upload it to a position, a job search, was able to get the interview, get the job, and then he came back to help him with the computer side of getting all of the human resources paperwork in, which was a lengthy, I would say almost a week process, but we're very proud of that. So the 2025 budget. So as we look to next year, a key takeaway for the library's budget is the county reimbursement is down from the previous year by $40,244. This is a reflection of the lack of patron checkouts in 2023 from municipalities without a library. So in the library world, in public libraries and in municipal libraries, you have, so for example, with our library, the Village of Waterford, we have a municipal appropriation And then we also serve patrons or potential customers who live in municipalities without libraries. And it works on like a 2-year cycle. So whatever happened in 2023, how many circulations we had to patrons who live in the municipality without a library, our library is reimbursed for that. And so what happened in 2023, the data from 2023, now we're seeing the reimbursement in 2025. I also wanted to highlight briefly, as we look through some of the data, that of course our library strives to provide quality services to our community. And as I mentioned on the first side, we look towards the Wisconsin Public Library Standards for guidelines. There are 3 levels of service. So Tier 1 is the minimum services that should be available to all residents of the state. Tier 2 is an expansion of services beyond the basics, so build upon Tier 1. And Tier 3 is the highest level of service. Now to look at some of the data and to kind of explain like how you see the county reimbursement. So I have it divided up into, you have your circulation, municipal appropriation, county reimbursement, open hours, visits, so how many patrons, not unique patrons, but how many visits we had through the year. And then FTE, so that is the full-time equivalent based on a 40-hour work week. So in the packet, hopefully everyone has one, if it's easier to look there. So for example, you can look at 2017. 2017 was a banner year for our library because we celebrated our 50th anniversary. So you see the circulation is high, there's lots of foot traffic, the visits are high. Then in 2018 and 2019 and a little bit into 2020, we see the construction project. Sometimes our library, like right in front of our library, the road was closed, etc. But of course, I'm really proud to say that the library went above and beyond and had another service point in what was pharmacy station. And so every day, a librarian would drive to pharmacy station over the lunch hour, bring holds, pick up discharges, just so for people who didn't feel comfortable driving in the construction would be able to have their needs met. Then 2020, as you see, has 2 asterisks. That denotes, of course, COVID. And then as we move along into 2023, 2024, 2025. So you can see, for example, in 2017, which was a great year for the library, celebrating its anniversary, you can see how that circulation directly impacts the county reimbursement. So in 2017, this is what the library circulated, and then the library receives this amount from the county reimbursement for circulations rendered during that year. You can see, for example, in 2018, 2019, 2020, you can see that reflect in later years with the construction, etc. So if there are barriers, it's hard to get into the library. So you can see the county reimbursement decrease slightly. You can also see our open hours. We were up 57 hours in 2017, 2022, 58, 2023, 44, 2023, 44, 2024, 44. But how do we compare with our peer libraries? So looking at the service population and funding. So the gold standard in public libraries in Wisconsin is to look at your service population, although I certainly do appreciate from the Finance Committee that you do want to look at the municipal population. And I know it's been a concern about, so for example, if you're subsidizing other communities' services. So I just wanted to give you a rundown of peer libraries in the state, what their municipal population is, their service population. You can think of the service population, so our service population at the Waterford Public Library. So our municipal population is the village of Waterford, and the service population are all the surrounding communities. So you can think of it as your potential customer base. And you're trying to lure them to your library by having the latest and greatest, having great programs, the best sellers, etc. Then you can see the corresponding municipal appropriation and then the county reimbursement. Okay, staffing. In 2023, the library's service population, as I mentioned, was 22,403 people, and the number of full-time equivalent employees was 6.85. So as we look back to the Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 standard, so a Tier 1 with a service population of 22,403 people would have 11.2 FTEs. Tier 2 would have 11.2, and then Tier 3 would have 15.69, and we currently have 6.85. Then moving to hours open, in 2023, our library was open 44 hours per week. A Tier 1 library, so that's basic level of service, that would be 60 hours. Tier 2 would be 63, and Tier 3 would be 67. As we look at the budget that's presented in the packet and that I submitted to the treasurer, because of the $40,244 reduction from our budget, of course, this, as I had mentioned, this is a direct loss due to the county reimbursement from 2023, which is due to be dispersed in 2025. So if we're looking at that and we want to make our budget work and have a zero balanced budget, we would have to decrease our hours by 14 hours, so by 44 hours per week to 30 hours per week. We would look at 3 library assistants' employment being terminated. We would also turn off the HVAC during non-open hours and reduce the gas electric budget by $15,000. So we're looking at $60,000 to $45,000. And with these measures, we still are over budget by $3,506. Are there any questions? So we do have 2 library board members who have joined us. Are there any questions that we could answer for you as you're looking through?
So first of all, I'm Heather. I want to say that was an excellent presentation.
Oh, thank you.
Your library board should be very proud of you and happy that you put that together. I know that took a lot of time. Very good.
Oh, thank you.
I have had the opportunity to spend a lot of time with all of you out there the last 2 years. I think I've only missed 1 meeting, and that was due to a death in my family. So I've gotten to know all of you personally, and you guys are the most committed group you could ask for in your community's public library. So when John, you mentioned about a pillar of the community, you guys defined that in my eyes, and it's been a pleasure to spend the last 2 years getting to know you and working with you. To that point, you guys have done everything you possibly could with the amount of money that the Village of Waterford has given you. So that should be applauded, and the community should know that. So I wanted to make sure you all heard that from me. We did talk about, when I joined you guys a few times, the status of where the Finance Committee sat the last few years. We have some new board members this year, and I made that known to you guys, and I think this is a great opportunity for you to engage with them or for them to ask questions of you guys. So if there are any questions, I know Trustee Ewert said you had one if you'd like to go.
Thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
When you cut the hours, where did you cut the hours? Is it like weeknights, weekends, and?
You mean where we cut from 2022 to 2023?
I'm just looking at the reduction from, your average of 57 down to 44.
Yes, thank you for asking. So in 2022, we were open from 8:30 till 8, Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, 8:30 to 6 on Thursdays, 8:30 to 5 on Fridays, and then 8:30 to 1 on Saturdays. And then now we currently are open 9 to 7 Mondays and Wednesdays, 9 to 5 Tuesdays and Fridays, noon to 5 Thursdays, and 9 to noon Saturdays.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And if the deficit stays, you're gonna cut to 30 hours? You said?
We'll have to reduce hours by 14, which would take us to 30 hours in order to make the budget.
And what, if you put that plan together, what would that look like?
I haven't, so I'm responsible for the day-to-day operations, and the library board and I just have done preliminary drafts of the budget, and I presented to them, this is what it would look like for us to make the budget, but we haven't looked at specific details of
Right.
where exactly.
Thank you.
I guess I'm looking at page 3 here, and it says the general property tax hasn't changed. 216,500, it's the same as last year. And it was 200,000 in 2023. Am I reading that correctly?
Yes, sir.
I think they're referring to the 40,000 they're gonna lose in the county reimbursement, not from the village
I'm just
municipal.
making sure that was
Yeah.
clear.
The municipal,
We did not cut the budget.
No.
we did not, we drastically cut the budget though, going into 2023, we cut $100,000 out of the budget. And we all agreed to that at that time. And some of us have learned that that was the wrong decision to make, myself included.
What did you base that on?
We were trying to trim across everything, across the board. It wasn't just the library, it was every department. It was trying to hunker down and make some plans for the future.
We laid off 2
Needs another
employees and I have
There were
those.
needs, there were needs,
Needs
but
in other departments.
I'm going to admit that that was a mistake on my part. The rest of the board, the committee does not have to admit that. I'm going to admit that. That was too drastic of a cut.
Linda, we laid off 2 full-time employees and admin at the same time. The unfortunate part about our operational budget, not talking about capital, just operations, is there is, service demand during daytime hours to be able to field 2 ambulances. And that's a really expensive proposition to be able to maintain that. But, 2 chiefs ago, the gentleman that was running the show was Rick Mueller. He ran it for, I think, 7 years, pre-me. Did an amazing job, and he staffed our units with volunteers or people that were paid a pretty nominal amount. After he retired, things changed, and the revenue streams that we had put in place that we discussed last meeting related to interfacilities revenue were not delivered. And as a consequence, the board only had so many levers to pull to be able to manage something that remotely would look like fiscal sustainability. Right now, with the budget draft that you have today, without any contemplation of increased funding here or really any increased funding anywhere, you are already at roughly a $350,000 structural deficit. Okay, so you have enough cash on hand that you can do that for, let's call it 3 or 4 years, and then we're gonna have to start sequencing payments. So, hey, sorry, we're not paying you, vendor. We don't have the cash on hand to pay you, vendor. We're gonna be able to pay you 2 months from now. So that's how the city of Algoma has to do things, right? They don't have the cash on hand to manage. So, you know, there are gonna be an infinite number of wants that are gonna come before you all as a deliberative body to consider these things. And, you know, unfortunately, you've only got so much income. Act 10 was put in place. I know that, you know, many of your elected officials have, you know, experience with that. I talked to Tony Spence over at the school district today. Man, they're in a bind. They're gonna be talking to our board later tonight, in terms of how federal aid has been cut. I don't know of anything in the United States that has stayed exactly the same in pricing for 7 years, except your tax bill coming from the village of Waterford. The money may have moved around from one place to another. There is only one mechanism to get you around Act 10, and it is what the city of Algoma is doing right now. It's what the town of Waterford is doing right now. That's operational borrows. So think of them as short-term 1-year loans, and you raise your tax rates for that. You're going to hear it from your taxpayers. There's not one, well, very small number of taxpayers on your survey that said, you know, please raise our taxes to fund services.
I got another question, page 13, under capital funds, you got 140,000 budget for HVAC system.
Yes, sir. Yeah, your building's 20 years old. Mike is having to cobble it together right now. Mike, how many man hours you think you spend on that library HVAC a year?
A year,
20,
that's
30?
hard to say, 40, 50, 60,
Okay.
just on the heat streets.
He has to babysit it a while.
So the village taxpayers are putting out 140,000 for HVAC next year for the library.
Yes, sir. Well, not exactly. So all of the new development, and this ties back into our development conversation from a few meetings ago, is what is actually going to be funding most of that. So impact fees, in particular from the apartments that have been built recently, have funded, over the last several years, about $100,000, I'm going from memory, not off the sheet,
Either way,
And,
we got,
of impact
yeah, and
fees.
unfortunately, Don, if you look down the 2 years after that, we're looking at 200,000, which is probably half of what we truly need for the roof that the building needs.
Yeah.
right,
This is just what happens when a municipality owns a building. It's no different than our own home. If we needed a roof, you're gonna put a new roof on. If the boiler goes out, which we haven't even talked about yet,
Yep.
the boiler goes out, you're gonna need to heat your home, so.
there's other expenses other than the money we
Correct.
put in every year.
And, go ahead, Tom.
I, new to the board, this is my first year here, so I was not a part of the board, when this discussion happened, but I find it shocking that, 2 years ago, their budget was cut 1/3. I don't know what that discussion looked like, but there is no way that something that's as important to a community as a library should lose 1/3 of their budget. Unless there was a plan put in place that over time, it got back to sustainability or something. And I'm hearing none, so I'm hoping we're here to discuss giving them a bump in this budget. Because there is no way I wanna make that we cut that library again. 30 hours? Not
Would you
cheap.
like to do an operational borrow and raise taxes to give them that bump?
Let me speak, please. So, what I wanna say is, you were not here last year. I advocated in front of this finance committee last year for $25,000. My vision was what yours was. Let's take a steady bump up. Let's figure it out on a year-to-year basis. I understand Zeke is hired to tell us exactly that. We need to be looking out 3, 4, 5 years. I get that. What we did 2 years ago was wrong to the library and wrong to the community. Okay? At that time, I voted in favor. I'll be right up here to say it. First, I voted for that, but I learned from that mistake. You're not gonna hear too many politicians sit in any seat ever say they learned from anything. So I will say that. So I advocated for it last year. This finance committee was not interested in figuring out how to take care of that, so we stayed flat last year. I am obviously gonna do exactly what you said. I'm advocating again for $25,000. Zeke can explore those mechanisms and share them with how the crowd or who he wants to. I'm not asking for that to be decided today. I'm asking for that conversation to be had today. And for this committee to kick that around and everybody say how they feel about things. Because that's what's not happening enough in any committees across any board in this country, is having conversations. People need to know what their elected leaders are feeling and what they should be saying. So I heard yours.
And what was the number again to stay just flat?
40. And
40,
they will need more than 40, right? So I mean,
Nothing stays flat.
Yeah,
We go,
I wanna-
but the problem with that is though, let's just look this through a second. We go down to 30 hours. That circulation rate's gonna drop from 126,000 down to 80,000, and then in 2 years, the county reimbursement is gonna go
Yeah.
from $360,000 down to $290,000.
Heather, can you pull up on your
This is not
presentation
sustainable.
the circulation data?
Hold on, but from a salary, Heather, your salary, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So you work 40 hours a week, correct? So the library should be open 40 hours a week, correct? So it's a reduction in man hours, not opening hours, correct?
No, it will be a reduction.
Because as a manager of 20 years, when I don't have manpower, I have to fill that gap. And unfortunately,
Let
we
me
put
go.
you in that place. But however, it should, if you're salaried at 40 hours, it should be open for that 40 hours
They
minimum.
would have finished.
That's assuming
No.
that 40 hours is all time in front of the public in the
I
library.
understand that,
If you've been a manager, you
Oh, I know.
understand, there's
I've been
other
there.
times and other things that have to be
but
done.
this is, may I follow up, Adam? on
Yes,
this?
let's just do this one at a time and have a little bit of fun here.
So, that's my point coming from the corporate world, being a manager, knowing that, I see this everywhere I go with all my clients, everyone's cutting. We have a problem, it's inflationary. And we as a finance board, hold on Zeke, you can talk later. As the finance board, we've been trying to keep taxes flat, that's been the philosophy from our president, right? That he set the standard, we wanted to keep taxes flat. I am a fiscal conservative, but you cannot sit here and keep taxes flat with the inflationary pressures we're under. It just doesn't make sense. We have to get more money in the coffers, so we're not in this situation making our librarian work 40 hours a week in front of the consumer and not doing her operational things in the back. But that's the situation we're in. But and it goes against economic rules to raise taxes during a recession or an economic downturn. I get it. But we've been holding the line for so long, and now we're at a structural deficit of $300,000. I am 100% against having any structural deficit. We should be running a flat budget, and our taxpayers, and the way we budget it, that's how it should be funded. That's how it's set up. And we are setting ourselves up in the long run to hurt our taxpayers because we are not gradually increasing taxes, like maybe 2.5% a year, or not 5%, 0.5. We need to have money in the coffers, and we've kept stuff flat, and that's awesome, Don. We've kept taxes flat. We've done a good job of that. But we cannot sit here with these inflationary pressures and ignore it any longer.
Andy, there's a levy limit, we can only.
I understand that, and I know, that's why you have to do a
Say,
certain.